Hello, I'm Jared Taylor with American Renaissance. These videos are not being suggested in the ordinary way. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate it very much if you would suggest it to some of your friends. Last Tuesday, Barnes & Noble announced new, diverse editions of the classics with multiracial cover illustrations. Here are 3 different versions of Romeo and Juliet. You'll note that Juliet in the middle is wearing a hijab. Here's Frankenstein at the upper left, then Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. Peter Pan got a deep tan, too. The new series was the idea of Sanyu Dillon, who was director of marketing for Penguin Random House USA, which printed the books. She worked with Doug Melville, chief diversity officer of Barnes & Noble's ad agency, who, according to a profile at Diversity Woman, eats, sleeps, and breathes diversity. He's on the board of AdColor, which exists to create a community of diverse professionals. Sanyu Dillon says the whole project was guided and shepherded by persons of color, all specialists in the mysteries of diversity. The covers were, of course, designed by diverse artists. The new series kicked off Black History Month, which used to be known as February. And the idea was to make people of all races comfortable with the classics. For the first time ever, the company said, all parents will be able to pick up a book and see themselves in the story. Barnes & Noble said it was very careful to choose characters whose race is never specified. As the company explained, these characters were assumed white for no reason. I mean, Shakespeare never said Romeo and Juliet were white. Dorothy's from Kansas, but who says she was white? I'd call this a truly bold diversity initiative brought to us by certified experts, except it was a flop. Black author L.L. McKinney said Barnes & Noble's was, quote, just trying to cash in on the fact that it's Black History Month, and now all of a sudden, black faces and brown faces will sell books. David Bowles, a Latinx author, tweeted at Barnes & Noble, "You're disrupting Black History Month and the literary dignity of communities of color." Disrupting the dignity of communities of color. Nnedi Okorafor, who writes fantasy fiction, hit back the hardest. This fake diversity nonsense is disgusting. New stories by people of color about people of color is the solution. In other words, publish more of her books. Well, the very day after it announced the new series, Barnes & Noble ditched it and apologized. And it announced it would donate $10,000 to the Hurston Wright Foundation, whose mission statement says its purpose is to nurture black authors. Well, I feel very sorry for Barnes & Noble. How could specialists who eat, sleep, and breathe diversity, people who certainly look the part, make such an awful mistake? You hire wise people of color to make you sensitive to diversity, and it blows up in your face. Sometimes, I guess, diversity baffles even the experts. But I really don't understand. In the movies, people say you're a genius if you slap a black face on a white character. Critics were ecstatic over the multi-culti casting of the 2018 film Mary, Queen of Scots. This black guy plays George Dalglish of Queen Elizabeth's court, and an Asian plays Bess of Hardwick. Here are more blacks from the movie. In The Hollow Crown, a BBC series that ran from 2012 to 2016, this woman played Margaret of Anjou, the French wife of Henry VI. Here's the real Margaret in an illustrated manuscript from 1444. Nearly 30 years ago, Warner Brothers put out a version of Robin Hood with Morgan Freeman as Robin Hood's trusty sidekick. And then there's opera. Jesse Norman was singing white opera characters from at least 1984. And here in red is the Grand Inquisitor in a recent production of Verdi's Don Carlo. This is from a Yale Alumni magazine article about dressing people authentically for the stage. This is Joan of Arc. We're supposed to admire the perfect armor, doublet, baldric, but not notice that they got Joan's race wrong. These days, I guess we ought to be grateful she at least appears to be played by a woman. A Wrinkle in Time is a famous children's book from 1962 with white characters. The original 2003 movie version had white characters too. But just 15 years later, Disney remade it as a multiculti celebration. If Margaret of Anjou can be black, why not Captain Ahab? I mean, really? The only reason I can think of is that a black Margaret of Anjou is ridiculous, but at least a black actress gets a job. A black Captain Ahab is just ridiculous. Please note, though, that Disney's race change operations go only one way. It's about to release a live-action remake of Mulan. Mulan is a legend. You could put in absolutely anyone you like, but the cast of thousands is all Asian. Not one Ethiopian kung fu master. Will the NAACP boycott Disney? Here's a production of Porgy and Bess. If Joan of Arc can be black, can't just one of these characters be, say, Mexican? No. And if you cast either Porgy or Bess as anything but black, you'd be kicked out of the human race. But turn white people black, and you're a creative genius, even if it makes no sense at all. Emma Frost produced The Spanish Princess about Catherine of Aragon, set in Tudor England. She knows there weren't a lot of black people around. Even I knew just from basic research that wasn't true, she says. But she cast a black major character anyway. Emma Frost, though, is way behind the times. You see, now we're supposed to believe the Middle Ages were teeming with non-whites. As BBC writer Hannah Flint explains, a multiracial Britain existed before revisionists and colonialist apologizers began whitewashing. She says all the multiculti casting is actually more accurate. You see, racists are trying to whitewash the Middle Ages. Movie critic Yolanda Mercado tells us that even in the 15th century, Europe had migrants from what is now known as the Middle East, as well as Asia, India, Sub-Saharan Africa, and more. So diverse casting creates a more realistic world. The black guy we saw earlier in Mary Queen of Scots says casting him as a lord, for heaven's sake, shows what Britain would have looked like at the time. Miranda Kaufman is a historian who has spent her professional life hunting for Africans in British history. After an exhaustive search of documents of all kinds, she claims to have tracked down 360 blacks and Arabs in the 140 years between 1500 and 1640. They would have been an invisible speck in a population of 4 million. Not one of them left a mark on British history. So why all this silliness about a multiracial Middle Ages? I think it's so people who want us to become a minority can say, Europe's always been that way. Africans and Muslims moving in? We're just going back to our roots. You think you deserve a racially coherent future? You don't even have a racially coherent past. It's another way of telling us we don't have the right to be us. It's like the idea that race isn't real, just a social construct. We're all biologically identical. So if white people disappear, we were just replaced by ourselves. They'll try anything, won't they? Well, I'm not falling for it, and neither should you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also, take a look at our podcast channel. That's Amran Podcasts at YouTube. Also, you might come by our website. That's amren.com, AMREN.com.